So we're real estate agents, and when we went looking for the right house for us, we couldn't find it. It was
so surprising.
It was really frustrating.
What kind of real estate agents are we? We can't find ourselves a house.
So we're going to talk today about what the journey or adventure was like with us, and how we ended up building a house. Not us physically, but finding people to help us build a house and design it, and what that journey looked like. Because we didn't set out to build a custom, we call it custom home. It sounds bougie, but a home that's custom to what our specs, what we're looking for, our own property. So we didn't set out looking for that. And, kind of like what we learned through this process really made us better agents, I would say. And it changed every conversation that we have with our clients.
Right. And so we're going to, I guess, pull back the curtain a little bit on our own story and talk about kind of what we went through. And it's funny because when we started this journey, we weren't actually even living together yet, which I think is unique for most people looking to right size. We were actually going to be selling our own homes, and we'd been together for a couple of years, but because we both had kids at home, we made the decision not to live together until after they were out. So it is interesting to also try to find the perfect home when you've never actually lived in a home together. And we're not, so I just thought that was kind of an interesting twist, something that most people don't have to go through, but kind of fun. So should we talk about why nothing worked for us?
Sure, yeah.
So we had some really honest conversations, and I think we benefited a lot from our ability as agents to show other people homes and watch them go through this process. And in fact, in 2018, when you were still what we called my junior assistant,
yes.
when you weren't licensed yet, you still came with us and helped me out on a lot of these showings. And we had one set of friends in particular that were really on their own search for the right size home. And one thing I think that we noticed, pretty much every house we went to, because we knew we wanted a house on property, and we were kind of open at the time to the size, trying to even figure out what was the right property size for us. But it seemed like every house was right on the road, and it helped us realize that we wanted to be tucked back in a little bit with our own sense of this is our own space together with our family and our friends that we just felt could be ours, and have a little privacy, I guess.
Yeah, to explain that further, what we were seeing was maybe there would be a development of 5-acre parcels. Mm-hmm. And there might be, cul-de-sacs or on the streets. And like at the end of a cul-de-sac, you would have 5-acre parcels going out, and the houses would be basically on the cul-de-sac, like you were in a neighborhood with just gigantic yards behind the houses. And it kind of stumped us. That works for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. A lot of people feel like they would like to have community, kind of when they're living in the country, so they don't feel kind of isolated. That's a great word. But for us, what we were looking for, the lifestyle we wanted just a little bit more privacy. We wanted a little bit more when you're arriving to the house, a little bit more, I don't know, tension, like that kind of mystery.
We wanted the reveal to happen as you drove up the driveway, not just boom, there you are.
You're on the street and you just turn in and park on your driveway and then wave at all of your neighbors, when you're living out in the country. So that was kind of one of the challenges that we were finding.
I think another one is a lot of the homes in the country on property tend to be older homes. And we were open to that. We had decided we would definitely consider doing some remodeling, making it our own. However, what we realized that a lot of the floor plans were either 2-story, and it would be difficult to have a main floor living space, which I think for us was a priority, like a primary suite on the first floor, or just the amount of remodeling, the work that it needed to get it to where we would want it to be would
on
really
top of the starting price.
Right.
A lot of these homes still they were proud of their homes, and they were
Yes.
just like if we take you out seeing homes, because we were showing lots of homes to other clients as well as for looking for ourselves, and
Right.
they're still at large price points.
Right. And then also, if we invested the money that it would take to make the house the way we wanted, we realized we would be building above market value. And so that we were just not really sure that we wanted to commit to a home knowing that that was going to be the outcome.
Right.
So that was just another interesting point. We actually were at the same time looking for land as well, being open to building. However, one of the challenges with country property that you will find if we take you out looking at houses is that a lot of it is very hilly. And, you know, if you want flat usable space, that's unique. It is actually not as common, I think, as most people think. It is probably if you go looking out in the valley and you head down more towards Stockton and south of there. But in the foothills here, I mean, it's in the name, we're in the hills. And so we didn't want to have a house on top of a hill and then we had a back deck and then the rest just flowed down and we couldn't really use any of it. We were open to not being able to use all of it, but you know, we wanted some of it. We wanted chickens, wanted to have a garden, you wanted to have a shop.
Yeah, it was really challenging because, you know, no big surprise, all of the flatter parcels that are easy to build on have been built on.
Yes. Path of least resistance.
So it's what you're left with are the ones that are a little hilly or maybe just overpriced or, you know, or more difficult to get to. It takes you an hour from the freeway. So these were challenges. And so you're kind of looking for the diamond in the rough a little bit.
Right.
Plus, if we were buying a house that needed some remodeling, but if the house was located near the street, like you can't move the house. It is where it is. So what you find, I like explaining to people when you're looking at rural properties, it's not so much like when you go in a neighborhood and you start to learn, I like this model and this model in a particular neighborhood. And so I'm looking for it's basically the 15% of the homes are those models. We're waiting for one of those to come up and I want that model. On country homes, it's not just the layout of the house or the condition, or if it's updated, it's also what does the property look like? Where's the house located on the property? Does it have a well? Does it have power? How long did it take you to get to the property? There's so many variables.
And one more that's really important. What are the neighbors like on either side of you? And what is it like driving into the property? You know, we are all familiar with the Clampetts from our favorite TV show back in the day. You know, that was a fun show to watch, but you don't want to drive by the Clampetts on the way to your house.
Yeah, you know, you're driving through an easement through somebody's property and it feels like you're going to send your friends and family to drive what looks like right through the center of there's their garages on one side and the house is on the other, and you're just sharing the gravel road and your parcel is behind that. These things aren't insurmountable, and for some people it works. For us, that wasn't what we were looking for.
Right.
So how did we come to the decision to build?
I still remember the day you called me and said, I think I found the land that we're going to buy. And you were so excited, and you'd already spent, I think, an hour out there by yourself. In fact, if I recall correctly, you may have gotten your truck stuck, or maybe that wasn't the first
that was later. I got the truck
that's
stuck.
A whole other story. But I remember you talking about, these were your words, the texture of the land, the views that were on the property, how much you could walk around and see it, that it was a great mixture of the oaks and the pines, which I love oaks, you love pines. So finding property that had both was really amazing. That there were neighbors nearby, but they weren't on top of, because we do like community. We wanted to feel like we had people around us, but just not right on top of us.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. And yeah, the property was definitely a kind of a diamond in the rough that we had discovered for sale. It was kind of included with some other properties I think it was mislabeled on where the address was, so maybe it wasn't getting the right viewing. But being a real estate agent, or an assistant at that time, I knew how to figure out where the property lines are and could kind of figure out, this is the property that they're talking about. And it was undeveloped. It had no power, no water, no road, septic, no nothing. It was just raw land. So we bought raw land. And
right. Yeah. And it was a great price, which was very lucky for us, very fortunate too. And
it was,
so,
I mean, it was a competitive price, but it was, it was in our budget. And the landowner, because he owned other parcels, was willing to do a short-term owner carry for us. So because it is really difficult to get land loan on raw land.
Yep.
So we were able to put together a proposal with our offer that said he would carry it for a couple, we're paying him monthly and he'll carry it for a couple of years, and then we'll have a balloon payment. We'll have it all paid off by a certain time.
Yep. And I think because we could envision ourselves, this is the first place, home or land, where we could really envision our lives together. And I remember that feeling. It was so exciting for both of us to feel like we finally know where home's going to be. And it's scary to take that next step and commit to building, but we knew it was the right choice.
We didn't start right into the building part. At that point, we were still trying to pay off the land. Before, just so for those of you that don't understand some of the nuts and bolts, before you can get if you want a construction loan, you need to have your land fully paid for. It can't have encumbrances on the property. So until we have to get it paid off before we could start any building. So what do? We put our camper on it.
Made a fire pit, a picnic
we made
table.
it basically a campground. This is, don't tell anybody in El Dorado County. Officially, I don't think we're not supposed to really be camping on our property, but out in country living, I think you all that are watching can understand. As long as you're not making a scene, it was great. And we spent time cleaning up the property, not with debris, but down trees and getting ready to put in a road and kind of trying to figure out where we would put the house, things like that. Was what we could work on to start with. And it was a lot of fun. Right. It gave us, instead of going out camping somewhere, it gave us a purpose to go to our land and to just cut some trees, trees that were down, and cut them up, stack them, make firewood. It was buy a tractor.
Yeah. Well, this is a great time to interject that it was at this point you decided to sell your house.
Yes.
And we were living far from our land, but in more of a neighborhood feel. And it was so great because the property gave us the opportunity to get away and get some of that togetherness that we wanted without, a bunch of neighbors, right around us. And so it was kind of a nice escape and it really helped kind of form the bond that we have with our property now.
Yeah. So
we talk about like what it's like to work with an architect
and
so why we chose that.
Yeah, I think so. I think what was, there was two paths that we could take when building out on our property. And that was going with a design build firm or a company or going to an architect, making the plans and then bringing the finished plans to a builder. Yes. For me personally, this was something I felt pretty strongly about, whether right or wrong. I felt uncomfortable bringing a budget to a builder and saying, hey, what can we get for this? And, kind of giving them a list of things we'd like to get. I feel like it would be like talking to my parents and they're like, you can't get that for this.
And I felt the same way, but I think I had kind of the opposite concern of like, we're going to tell you we have X amount of money to spend and you're going to make sure you spend it all, maybe on things I didn't necessarily want or need, but because you want my money.
So, or because I want to build it this way because it's easy for me.
Yes.
And I'm charging the same amount, but this is because it's easy. I felt like going to an architect, the architect is going to build something that's going to reflect their style, obviously our style, but also their art. Their art is going to be portrayed in the product that gets built. And if the builder has to figure out how to kind of do it, that's a little bit on the builder. Obviously, we don't want anything super complicated so that it becomes expensive. But I felt like an architect, kind of like an interior designer versus just somebody who's going to put furniture in a room. Kind of when you give them the feel and here's what I want, they can take your vision and then turn it into something.
Really, yes.
And
really,
that's what they do.
Yeah, execute well on that.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And there were actually things during the build process where the architect's vision didn't necessarily mesh well with construction. I'm actually thinking about our pantry door behind us, where it's funny, we have this beautiful pantry and the door was supposed to go in, but then actually when you went to put the door in, there would be the bottom of a staircase, and so it wouldn't actually swing. And it's just kind of funny. Those are things, but
slight oversight.
Instead of obviously like cutting out the stairs or reconfiguring the pantry, we had another alternative for it, but we didn't want to compromise on the vision of that. So
no, it was good. So we gave our architect kind of a list of things, like we wanted kind of a light, airy feeling. We wanted a lot of natural light. We didn't want a cave. Ultimately we came into a vision where, when you enter the house, it's not bougie, it's not fancy finishes, but the house doesn't feel like what we all grew up in, your traditional kind of neighborhood house. And the difference I like to describe it as is, in all the homes I've ever lived in until this one, the homes feel turned in, where you're not sitting in a room gazing out. Like there are windows, there's light that comes in and everything, but you really kind of spend all the time centered into the house. But we've built a house that feels like everywhere you're at, there's a component of gazing out.
And because of where we live, that is a very important piece.
Yeah.
When you go back to talking about the properties that we were looking at before, and we would say, like, why are there no windows in the kitchen? You could be washing your dishes and looking out this gorgeous view, and instead you just have a wall. And we didn't want to miss those opportunities here. And also, when you say our house is not elegant, I agree with you. We also didn't want a cabin. We didn't want to be the cliche cabin in the woods. So I think what we told our architect is something along the lines that we want it to be like a mountain modern, and not modern like you'd see in a museum modern, but contemporary in style and feel, but also comfortable to live in.
Yes.
That balance. You want to be able to touch the walls or walk around and not feel like everything is should be behind a glass box.
Yes,
like,
or gilded in gold or something.
Yes.
No, it's not us. And the other word we used was grounded, where our property has some slope and topography to it, but we didn't want a house where, when you in the living spaces, if you walked out, you were on a deck and overlooked kind of our view, and it felt like you were elevated from the ground. I mean, that is great. I mean, you get a great view that way, but the way we wanted to be able to entertain or just live our lives is flow out and then be able to keep kind of flowing, so that you leave the house and have people kind of moving around. If you have a fire pit or something, you don't have to go downstairs from the deck to the fire pit.
Right. Well, because I know when we were looking at houses, again, a lot of times we would step out of the kitchen and have a
beautiful deck.
Yeah. Not often. It wasn't even a huge deck, but it was a decent sized deck. But then you'd see it was 2 stories down to get to where the pool was or where the barbecue is, and then you've got to be hiking up and down the stairs. And
it's interesting because then the land feels disconnected.
Yes.
And that was so. These are funny things, and it feels very particular to come up with these little things, but when you start going through it and you're spending the money, this didn't cost us more money to do it this way. These were just things that, as we saw homes, we realized you can't remodel a house that's built around a 2nd-story living space with a walkout basement and want it to feel grounded.
So if you're able to plan for it in advance, you get what you want.
Yeah.
And really at no extra cost, or maybe potentially a little bit more money, but we were able to budget for that and make sure we got the things that were very important to us.
Right. So I would say going through this process has really helped us become better agents. And like every conversation that we now have when we're searching for homes with clients, it's really impacted us.
Yeah, being able to ask the questions. Some people do really want that elevated view with the deck.
Yeah.
And that's great. So just having a conversation about it so that they think about these things before they buy a home.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, kind of going through it, we know the feelings of like not finding what we wanted. Mm-hmm. We know the feelings of trying to design around our life, and maybe we also know the feelings of not knowing what designing around our life even looks like, right? And so that allows us kind of the skills and some of the opportunity to have lived it, to be able to kind of ask those questions, and also just be empathetic about when we ask the questions, we also know that you may not know. So some of it's like, we'll work through it. It's
fact finding.
It's a journey, right? And it becomes incorporated in every right sizing conversation that we have. So, but it's great. I mean, because you don't have to build your own house, I think is what I'm trying to say, to have one that really fits in with your life. You don't have to have a custom build. What you have to have is clarity on what you're looking for.
Right. And I think even like when we walked into our house after it was done, like the first time or first few times, that feeling that you get when you know you're in your home, you're in your right space, you can't beat it. And we see that in our clients too. We can often tell when they found their home long before they've even told us, they're just the look on their faces, the way they look at each other. If there's a couple buying together, you just see it and feel it. And
it sounds super cliche to say, if you know, but, and it doesn't mean that we know, but when the client finds it, when our friends and folks that we're walking through to houses, that it's like we see a bunch of houses and we can talk about, oh, this works for us, this works for us, this doesn't work. It's that moment when all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is really exciting. And I think we've talked about in other videos, but it's that moment when they start kind of explaining away some of the things that aren't as good. It's like, that's okay, we can fix that later. It's like, this is, this isn't it.
So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the design choices we made in our house. And one of my favorite ones to talk about, just because I think it's funny, is as we were going through this process with the architect, I happened to actually break my ankle. And that part was not funny, but it was a great learning. And one of the things you realize is how important it is to have a curbless shower, because with a broken ankle, even a shower entry of 2 inches feels like a mountain. And so we were able to design our own shower to meet that. And then also we have an ensuite bedroom on the first floor adjacent to ours. And we knew our parents would often be staying in that. And so thinking ahead, we decided to make that a curbless shower as well, so that it'd be easy for them, especially as they age. And it's great when you're designing your own home that you can build in these little things.
Yeah. And we've designed because we have 4 adult kids, that we designed a large great room, a large kitchen, and a large dining room. And then kind of, I would call bonus space upstairs. We have an upstairs that we don't need to use as we age up. We can just not have to go up there. I mean, it's all finished and nice, but there's a couple bedrooms and a bathroom and some storage. But it allows us to have that bonus space for when the kids do come. Outside of when it's just you and I here, the stairs aren't a predominant aspect in the design. When you walk into our house, most people think it's a single-story house. So it is a single-story house with some extra bedrooms upstairs.
Right. One of the other things that we planned for that, again, maybe sounds a little funny, but if you have pets, I think you understand this, is that in most common tract homes, there is no clear area where you can store the items that belong to your pet, their food, their water. Obviously, if you have a cat, you'll have a litter box, and it generally ends up in your laundry room, which, no one really wants that. And so we were able to design kind of a back closet utility room that could also double for that for our pets.
Yeah.
And again, it's like the simple things that really make your life a lot better. No one else sees it. You would hardly know we had a pet just from when you walk in the door. Your first thought is, wow, they have cats. We don't, it's nice to not have that. So planning for those kind of things has been great.
And some of the other details I thought it was fun that the architect did for us is, we have, and as many people do, we have our laundry room is not where we walk into the house. He was, our architect had a lot of strong opinions.
Yes.
This was Donald Joseph, and he's done some very nice work throughout the state. But he was, you do not want to be walking in through. We all grew up walking into from the garage into the laundry room, into the rest of the house. And he was adamant. It's like, no, the entrance for the owners should be, something that helps you feel welcomed home, and maybe a spot to drop zone, a spot to set some things.
I think he said Amazon boxes,
yeah,
because that's the new thing now, right?
Yes.
Everyone gets Amazon more than
And
mail.
he's like, the Amazon boxes and the mail stop here. They do not go into the kitchen. Of course, ours do.
Yes.
But we appealed to a lot of things he suggested. But their laundry room is nice. It has a window. It is in a nice area that literally has a view also.
And it doesn't, where it's at, doesn't really spread noise through the house either.
Yeah,
we can shut the door.
It's kind of out of the way.
Yes.
The other thing was we have a large closet, which is great. It's very luxurious, honestly. But it was interesting because, again, architect suggested that we not design to have furniture in the bedroom outside of kind of bed and nightstands and a couple ancillary little pieces of furniture, but no dressers and things in the bedroom to keep it calm and relaxed and simple. So we have all of our closets built out with storage and drawers and hanging things. And it's on the other side of the bathroom area. So you can use the closet, go through the bathroom area, get to the bedroom, and vice versa. So his idea was to try and eliminate or reduce having piles of clothes around your bedroom. And it really has been interesting. It seems like these little things, but all of a sudden that, and not having a TV in our bedroom, it really does help to kind of focus on, this is where we go for quiet and peacefulness and to relax and to, have the bedtime.
One other design choice we made that I think is different from what other people may choose is we don't actually have any sort of breakfast nook area in our kitchen. We have our dining room table, which is where we sit, and it actually, we're able
Thanks
to
for
see.
joining us.
Yes. We have sat, I think, like 20 plus people in this space when we added a second table in. And then also our island has 6 bar stools. And so what we have found, and what I think we knew as we were designing the home, is that we would either congregate around the island, or if we were having a large volume of guests, we would probably seat them at the table. And that we realized we would never really use a breakfast nook table, and that's something we have not missed.
Right.
The other great thing with our kitchen is we were able to have what's called the butler's pantry. And the idea behind it is that all of your appliances that would normally sit on top of your countertop in your kitchen could be tucked away inside there and still plugged in.
Coffee maker, toaster oven, and anything else you want to plug in. We have a bunch of plugs in there, and it's basically a side room right next to the kitchen.
Right, and wine refrigerator.
Yep.
And so it's nice to have that space, have everything kind of co-located, but not in view. And even if you are preparing a nice meal and maybe you are getting some things ready in advance, they can just be tucked away in there and then pulled out when you're ready for them.
So think a standard, like a large pantry adjacent to the kitchen, but with a countertop, so that you have not just storage and cupboards and things to have your pantry items, but then you have a countertop to put things. If you're hosting, we can take the dirty dishes, instead of setting them by the sink, we could take a big platter and just set it in the, in the pantry. So it's out of the way, it's out of view, or have food that's going to come out later staged up in there, so that it sounds like we're running a whole production. Socially, we got to have more parties.
Right, yes. So what did this teach us about helping our clients? I mean, I think there's so many different ways. Just the idea of compromising as a couple. And working together to come to decisions. So understanding kind of the steps we took to get to a point where we both felt really good about the decisions has helped us talk to other people going through a similar process of trying to choose their next home, and really talking through what matters, the why behind what matters. That's the most important piece. When you understand what is driving a request, you can find potentially other ways to meet that too, if it's not meshing with what the other.
So you're saying it's given us the opportunity to learn to ask the right questions. I would also add that it's given us the empathy.
100%.
To kind of to know that even if you think you have the answers to the questions, it evolves as you see new things, as you kind of go through it and try to picture yourself in it. It's like let's let's move forward with what we think the answer is, and then have the empathy to know that it's probably going to change. Like it could evolve, and that we're not going to say, well, this is what you said you wanted.
Right.
Okay, well, that's what I thought I wanted. Now I want this. It's like, that's cool. That's
most times people really don't know, and it is an evolution, and that's great. We support that 100%. Yeah. We went through our own evolution.
So it's almost like being able to ask the questions in such a way that we're not putting it in stone. It's like, let's just ask the questions to get started, and then say, hey, this is probably going to evolve as we see things. And as you see things and you're like, I like that, and I like that, I don't like that. Well, okay, let's incorporate more of those and less of that. And we'll continue to hone in and get better. And
we're the ones, we do take notes, we do listen, we do try to repeat back. This is what we're hearing. Are we understanding? How do we refine this to help you kind of funnel down into what is right?
Yes. So it's the kind of knowing and have the feelings and having been through it has just kind of made us also relaxed about it. Like it's a process and a little bit scary at times, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from all of this as we wrap up is we're fortunate that we were able to build to get to our intentional living, but you don't have to build to find your intentional living space that really suits your needs. And that is our role, to work with you and help you figure out what it is that you need in this next stage of your life and help you find the home that fits that.
Right. And that's the conversation we love having, right? Is even if you're not ready to fully move forward yet, it's having that conversation and starting to kind of build the path, right? To what's the next step. So if you're trying to figure it out, even if you're not ready, give us a call. We'd love to sit down and chat with you about it, share more about what we've learned, and really focus on where you're at, where you think you're going, what you'd like to see next. What's your life going to look like? Let's talk about the future.
We're excited to share that with you.